Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleagues Jim Patterson and Paul Esterbrooks. Jim and Paul will be today's presenters and will discuss the topic of Connect Corporate Strategy Work Execution with a complete strategic portfolio management solution built on the Microsoft platform. This webinar is a new addition to our diverse library of project and portfolio management webinars we have available on YouTube and our website. So if you enjoy this webinar, we welcome you to watch the other videos available there. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again, and I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thanks, Robert, and welcome everybody. Pleased to be presenting to you today on this topic. We're going to talk about a number of different technologies in here that all relate to OnePlan and the capabilities that are in the title. Well, let's set the stage a little bit about the challenges in the marketplace that are meant to be addressed by the solutions we're going to talk about today. And these challenges are more acute than ever before. Businesses need to operate faster to deal with uncertainty, changing business climate situations like COVID, changes in the economy, etc. We need to operate faster and respond with a lot more uncertainty than we have in recent years. On top of that, employees, because of this, often feel disengaged and disconnected. And that's been exacerbated by things like COVID-19 that accelerated the transition to remote and distributed work and had us less co-located and feeling part of an overall culture at times. And even before that, work was siloed, making visibility and alignment painful, meaning that different segments of the organization were working on certain parts of things and didn't have visibility into others, and very difficult to coordinate and see necessarily how we fit into the bigger picture of things. Now, part of what we're introducing here is that Microsoft has introduced a suite called Viva, which is really intended to be an employee experience platform and ecosystem. And what is an employee experience platform? Well, it's a digital platform, obviously, that helps organizations create a thriving culture with engaged employees and inspiring leaders, even if we're not co-located and we're distributed in different places around the globe. And the components of that are multifaceted. There's the aspect of well-being and engagement, being able to understand what we should be thinking of next and creating work-life balance to making sure that we're getting proper rest and breaks in between our things that we're doing that meet the needs of the organization. There's growth and development on ongoing learning and onboarding and skill levels. There's purpose and alignment. There's the actual things to get done. There's alignment with the mission and the goals of the organization and the achievement of those things. There's culture and communications where we keep everybody abreast of news and events and things company related so that we all feel part of an overall culture and we start feeling as part of an overall bigger whole. And then ongoing knowledge and expertise to be able to share things like documents and contents and opinions and information from peoples and experts. All these things make one feel engaged and part of an overall mix and helps us to become part of an overall whole. Now, up till now, Microsoft Viva has had different solutions within the suite. There was Viva Connections for that engagement and news components. There was Viva Insights for productivity, for where you should focus and balancing the well-being. I get an email every morning from Viva Insights. Viva Learning, where we can have things like ongoing development and upskilling and personal and professional growth. And then Viva Topics, where we have knowledge and expertise shared throughout the organization. So these have been available for a little bit of while now in the Microsoft Viva suite. Now, related to our topic today, the recently introduced and made generally available from Microsoft has been Viva Goals, which brings the purpose and impact aspect to the employee experience platform. One is to create clarity and stay aligned at scale so that an organization can define success as an overall team and connect to the work and outcomes and align at all levels of the organization to make sure we're rowing in the same direction. It also focuses teams on impact, not output. It's not about how much we accomplish or how much we do. It's what moves the business forward, and share progress and insights across the organization to understand, are we achieving the things that we want to achieve from a goals and a strategy perspective? And also bring the goals into the flow of everyday work. Make sure that it comes into the forum where people are working every day and the things that they're doing every day, so it becomes a natural extension of what they're doing. So Viva Goals really uses an OKR approach to align teams around a proven goal setting and management methodology. Now, OKR stands for objectives and key results, and objectives are aligned with, say, overall strategies. And these are qualitative aspirational goals for individuals or teams or companies. And they describe the final result or the outcome we're looking for. Want to have more of a global footprint, want to achieve a certain percentage growth in the organization, want to achieve some new markets, overall objectives. And the key results are the measurable outcomes. These are the tangible things that we can point to and put metrics against that are aligned with these objectives to say, are we tangibly making progress to achieving those objectives? And then all across organizations, there's initiatives and projects which are efforts that hopefully are aligned to those overall objectives and contribute to the success of those objectives if we're doing this in a correct way. Now, the cool thing here is in this whole idea of disconnected employees in a more remote workforce, it was found through surveys that 96% of employees who use OKRs understand better how their work ties into broader company goals, which is good to know, and it's validating to understand that we're working on the right things that are helping make an impact to get the organization where it wants to go. Now, overall, you can increase engagement because we have better alignment to what's going on across the organization. We're all pulling on the same rope or rowing in the same direction. It gives us focus so that we prioritize the right things if we have competing priorities. Transparency means the ownership of the core outcomes of certain aspects of this. There's a clear accountability and dependencies are visible so we understand where things are at and how we fit into the overall picture. There's agility in there because it's visible and we can frequently assess whether or not what we're doing is the right course or should we have a course correction and have real-time data feeding back into that system. Ultimately, it lets us to strive for more ambitious outcomes and achieve them on a more frequent basis. So the Gartner Group says that you really have to not just do the strategic part that's in Viva Goals, but you have to align strategy with execution in order to have overall success. In the end of the day, we have to have tools that connect shared objectives that the business strategists come up with, and then be able to align them with the program and portfolio management leaders that are actually executing on the things that actually make these things possible. And the strategy and the execution and the overall strategic piece of this is a process involving people, strategy, and the overall operations of the system. And it's really about strategizing, developing and planning, having organizational alignment, operational plans, and then basically increase the value to the organization by executing on that strategy. Now, for an overall solution, there's many dimensions of this to make this successful. The Gartner Group says must-haves to have a solution that's connected from strategy all the way down to execution is there must be ease of use at the senior management level. It can't be too complex at the level that they're actually playing in this. It has to have the ability to capture a lot of information, including free-form data around a potential investment or an objective. There must be dynamic portfolio management, means that we can respond to changes. It's not just some static annual operating plan that just sits there on the wall. And there must be a flexible definition of a unit of investment so that as we do things like key results and the tangible measures, that we have different ways that we can measure those things. And we should have effective measurement of our results against the attendant business outcome, as we said. So those are definitely must-haves in a solution like this. The should-haves, that there should be bi-directional strategic communication, meaning the strategy should be communicated from leadership down through the organization, and the organization should be feeding up as well how we're doing against those things and what things we're doing that are aligning with those strategies. Overall program management, so we can have multiple streams of programs going on that support a wide variety of objectives in an overall organizational path and direction. And also formal scenario planning, because when things change, we want to run against some what if analysis, do scenarios, understand alternatives, and make informed decisions on what those alternatives are and which ones might be the most attractive ones for our organizations. And then other things we're going to talk about today that are in the solutions that we're going to present are required complementary capabilities. There's like resource capacity planning. Do we have the wherewithal to do all this? Do we have the bandwidth? Strategic decision support, so that we can actually get information that will help us course correct. Business process tracking and redesign. As we change and as we evolve and as we may become more agile, maybe our business processes change over time. And can we be flexible enough to adapt to that? And then an asset repository, because there are assets, as we'll talk about today, that are integral or required to factor in to determine whether or not we can do something, or all the things that we have to consider in order to succeed at doing what we're going to do. Now, we're going to talk about today to taking this even another step further to what Gartner calls strategic portfolio management, or SPM as the acronym is. And it's a set of business capabilities, processes, and supporting portfolio management technology. And it really is expanding the horizon of what we've done with traditional project and portfolio management in the past, or PPM. It's not replacing it altogether. We're still embracing those precepts, but the idea is to extend it to provide enterprise-wide strategy execution to alignment, and also factor in other elements as we prioritize, as we select, as we choose where to invest, and as we execute, because we have to factor in other elements such as business capabilities, investments, programs, digital and physical products, applications that we have to support these things, and the projects themselves. So a lot more than just the projects themselves, a lot more than just the strategy aligned with the projects. It's all of these different things in a mature fashion that have to be factored in. And so a complete SPM solution must capture and define and prioritize business strategies and then manage the execution of the initiatives and projects that are aligned with those. And it really has participants in here, or stakeholders, that the leadership who sets the overall direction and strategy, the IT management, and including product who maybe owns the critical assets in our infrastructure that are needed to support these things, and then the actual execution teams who are going to deliver. Now, to really achieve successful strategic portfolio management, there's three key attributes that have to work in tandem. You need to have overall portfolio alignment, which we discussed on alignment with strategy and other dimensions. You must have value-driven decision-making, not personality-driven or who bangs the table the loudest, but things that are actually going to demonstrate and provide true value to the organization in the context of the strategies and the direction of where the business is going. And then you have to have ongoing portfolio flexibility, because in this age of change, we are going to need to course correct many times over the course of a year. So what we're going to talk about today is the combination of Microsoft Viva with OnePlan really enables full SPM, or strategic portfolio management capability. There's the strategy, there's the execution, and there's the technology dimensions. Now, Microsoft Viva Goals has provided a capability to easily capture on a hierarchical basis strategies, objectives, and key results that the business leaders can define for the overall organization. OnePlan provides execution leaders with portfolio management capabilities for the projects and initiatives, as well as detailed execution parameters and capabilities we're going to talk about today. And then the technology piece is really about IT leaders who own the assets that have to be factored in, and the other dimensions of this that have to be factored into a complete strategic portfolio management approach. Now, if we think about Viva Goals allowing us to put the objectives and key results in and define an overall strategy for the organization, it then needs to be married or combined with the execution pieces that OnePlan provides. And we'll talk more in detail about that. But the key would be is that we would not only align our strategies with the efforts that are down below, but also help us in the prioritization decisions about determining what we should do next and what would come before what from a prioritization perspective, and then also feedback how the execution is doing towards that strategy to understand, are we actually making commensurate progress with those strategies or objectives as we had planned. Now, the OnePlan modules that support that are many. One, there's the portfolio management aspects that you can look at traditional portfolio management views or work with these in more agile portfolio board concepts for introduction of work and or prioritization. And then also roadmaps for people that are more product oriented, as well as what if scenarios and modeling in there that can actually help us evaluate alternatives in those portfolios. The resource capacity planning dimension that we talked about in the complementary things that must be in here, as well as detailed financial tracking, because there are the realities of budget constraints and the things that we might want or how we want to handle things from a capital or expense perspective. And then getting down to the true execution pieces, there are work plan capabilities, whether it be on the left where we're looking at more waterfall type planning, or on the right where we're looking at more agile backlogs capability and sprint planning, and working with those maybe in the terms of more agile boards, and consistent status reporting that comes out of that can be shared with our objectives and our key results. Now, we have those right in OnePlan, but we also support tools that you already own, Microsoft Project or Planner or Azure DevOps or Jira. The idea is getting that all fed into an execution, into a holistic execution portfolio is key to this whole SPM framework. And then the team members, getting the feedback from them, being able to give them a mechanism to feedback on all the things that they're assigned to and give you updates on where they're at and comments and conversation threads, as well as insights that they can get on what should be the focus of their attention and the things that are being communicated to them throughout this, as well as even a timesheet if somebody wants to report time against these things, and many organizations need to do that. Now, to go to the next level and to have a full strategic portfolio management or SPM solution, we need to have those other dimensions in the mix. So for example, there may be overall business objectives or an objective in your OKR model. And that might be to say, in this case, grow revenue 15%. Then there may be tangible key results to measure our progress towards that are aligned with that objective. And then for those, we then might have certain enterprise architecture components, such as a capability or a business capability like order processing. To achieve our grow revenue, do we have the capability in order processing today to support that, or do we have to change or modify that to support where we want to go? And that includes any applications that support that business capability. So that's interrelated as well. And then ultimately we get to the projects or the initiatives that are then aligned to all these, either directly or indirectly, and we have to factor those in to think about prioritization, what needs to be done, and the scope of what needs to be done, and maybe to prioritize or rank things in relation to each other to see what might be most important to the organization if that list of business objectives is really what the focus is of the organization. Now, to do this, Viva Goals will provide us a good tool for the strategic plan. And through our connector technology, that then gets connected in a seamless way with the strategy component of OnePlan, which then interrelates to the enterprise architecture components, which then also aligns and associates and creates those associations with the project portfolio as well. So we now get all the dimensions in there, not just the strategic plan that we worked with in Viva Goals. Now, the capabilities here from a visualization perspective in OnePlan in our visualizer allows us to look at runways to see how objectives are related to key results, which are related to projects or epics or products or applications or any other of the dimensions that you have in that enterprise architecture or business architecture framework. And even look at how these things are related from an individual project to all these other components. And we can factor this in and have our finger on the pulse of this and have this type of information on demand. Also reports, very similar, that we can look at that actually give us those similar views. Now, a lot of this is made possible because OnePlan comes with its own integration platform called OneConnect and allows us to get data on a bidirectional basis to and from other popular tool sets, whether it be agile or software development tools, financial management systems, ideation, other work management or project management tools, service management tools, professional services CRM tools, or even other strategic tools like Viva Goals, or even enterprise architecture tools you may already have in place. The key is this is a productized platform. It's integration as a service that allows you to bring these things together into a holistic hub in OnePlan. And then one of those criteria that Viva Goals had about doing this in the context of where people are already working, OnePlan is built for the Microsoft Cloud with a fused user experience. Yes, you can use OnePlan directly in your favorite browser, but you could also, it's enabled to be accessed and used from within Power Apps. In Microsoft, it's definitely enabled for Teams. It's a Microsoft authorized Teams application. The same thing holds true with things like Azure DevOps. You can access these OnePlan capabilities right from within Azure DevOps or from within Dynamics or SharePoint as well. The key is to stay working in the tools that you work in every day, but leverage and have access to these advanced capabilities. Ultimately, it's leveraging what you already own This message today is not about just ripping and replacing what you're doing with something new. It's how do we leverage what you already have and extend it and actually give you those additional capabilities without you having to reinvest and restructure everything. The ability to leverage these things on that context is really the focus and the approach of OnePlan. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Paul Estabrooks, who'll give you a demonstration of these things in action.
I'm going to start this demo today in Viva Goals. So I'm here in Teams. I'm going to start in Viva Goals, and I'm going to kind of walk you through all three components of SPM, where we articulate the goals and objectives here, how we're going to bring that over to OnePlan so that we can tie it to everything else. But first, when I get over into OnePlan, I'll show you sort of where the other pieces are. Then we'll talk about that linkage, because we're going to sort of look at this sort of as a three-legged stool, if you will, to bring this all together. So I start here in Viva Goals. I'm in as Daniel Williams. There's some organizational OKRs, so I have visibility into what the organization is thinking on the whole. Let that load, there we go. You know, as an organization, this is sort of the big picture, the big stuff. We're looking at this, you know, a specific quarter. I'm gonna jump back to my OKRs. This is the stuff that I'm responsible for, that I need to be focused on. We have a series of goals. I could add a new objective in here if I needed to. If I go inside one, you can see that underneath that particular objective are some key results. So I'm breaking down my objectives into the items that we'll know we've achieved the objective by realizing these results. So I want to be able to see both of this. If I drill into that, we can get sort of a bit more information. How are we tracking on this particular objective? What's the history of it? How have we been doing on this? What are the updates and so forth? So lots of great information here. I could create a new objective. I could add more key results to this. Here's my key results that are on this one. They're the same that are on the other screen. There they are, and I could add a new one if we thought of another thing that we should be tracking. So this is where I can quickly and easily articulate the strategy of the organization. That first leg of that stool, those three components. What are we trying to accomplish? How will we know when we've gotten there? Now, to do SPM the way Gartner talks about it, there's these other pieces to it, and the understanding of the interrelationship between them and the decisions that come with that is the crucial part. So from inside Teams, I'm just going to jump over to OnePlan. So I'm going to start here, just jump to the strategy. Here's that same data that was my OKRs, and we've pulled it across here because what we want to be able to do is to start attaching it to the portfolio as well as the enterprise architecture. And there's some status data here, and that could be bi-directional. I might be statusing it over in Viva Goals, or I might be statusing it here as a result of the work I'm doing and the projects and their progress, and pushing that back to Viva Goals, sort of a bi-directional exercise. But here's where I can, the same thing we had over there, we've brought it over. Now we want to abstract it and break it down into the other pieces. So before I get into that, I want to sort of look at some of those other components of SPM. So here's my enterprise architecture. So we have a different module in here. Let me just go to, I'm going to show all types quickly. And if I blow that open, in my current architecture, I have some products and capabilities. We've articulated a couple of value streams, and we have a few applications. Obviously, this is configurable as to the items that you want to track. But what we want to understand here is, what are the assets of the organization? Where are the things that we need to invest in? We know what our strategy is. Now we want to know, well, what are the pieces we need to invest in to enable to realize that strategy? That's the second part of this, and understanding that linkage. So if I just grab one of these quickly, you'll see there's a bunch of information. This particular CRM 3.2 is an idea. It's something we're proposing. It's got a status. It's got some information about it. It's linked to an overarching prioritization. But down here, more importantly, is it's linked to two of the corporate objectives, or two of my objectives, I should say, because that's what we brought over. Not linked to any capabilities or value streams yet, but it is tied to, I guess it's linked to one value stream. It is tied to a bunch of the projects in the portfolio. These projects have an impact on this app. They may be helping make it happen. They may be dependent upon its arrival in the organization. because it has functionality that they're going to need in order to complete their project. Whatever the case may be, we can have that visual understanding here of where are we invested and how does this infrastructure and architecture rather tie to what we're trying to accomplish. So that's the enterprise architecture. So we've captured the goals, the OKRs, I should say, in Viva Goals, and we've brought those over so that we can create these linkages, right? So that we can tie the architecture to it. Now we're going to dive into the portfolio. And so if I go into my portfolio, I'm just going to go to my list here. My portfolio summary, a couple of things we want to highlight. So I've broken that down. You can see in here that each and every project in here, whether it's a project or an epic, so this is hybrid or adaptive as Gartner would call it, it's got both agile and waterfall type projects, and each of them is being executed using a variety of tools. We are very big on supporting the tool of choice, giving people the tooling they need to get their work done, yet helping them participate effectively in the portfolio. And you'll see some of that as I walk along. But I've got these different projects in here, and if I scroll down, I'm going to grab sort of one here called Project for the Web. So this one is linked to and connected to Microsoft Project for the Web, and there's that work plan that we've pulled in. But if I jump back here and I look at my details, now what I want to see, we're in the planning stage, we've got a bunch of information about this project, could have drawn in some business case data, but more specifically, as I scroll down, scrolled right past it, is my enterprise architecture. This project is linked to those 3 key results. Those came from Viva Goals. We're now in that third leg of the stool in the execution side, and we want that visibility back to the other components. It's linked to that application I looked at a minute ago. This is one of the projects that's dependent upon or contributing to that particular application. It's also linked to some products and some value streams and other items, and we can continue to sort of add to that. What we've also done here is we've said on these 3 key results, the budget for this particular project is split in this manner, 30, 50, 20, so that it's the investment we're making in this project is counting towards those key results and their total cost or their total investment in this manner. So we can break that budget down. And likewise on the application, I could do a split, doesn't make sense, there's only one, but I could help build out the total cost of ownership of an application or anything else in my enterprise architecture, whether it's an associated product or whatever the case may be, is understanding that as we do projects and we are making further investments, portions of those projects should count against the total cost and the total investment we've placed in that particular part of the architecture. Likewise, it helps us understand what's the total investment we're making in accomplishing each of these key results. So we're rolling that data back so that we can have that complete picture. This project, I may also, some of the other things that I want to do here, and I wanted to highlight while we're here, is as a resource or as a PM, I've chosen to use Project for the Web to do my project. Great, good choice. So now I want to be able to do some resource planning against that project. So in here, I have a couple of resources, and I can sort of do what are my commitments, and I can sort of add more here that I need Joe, 50 more hours and so forth. And I can continue to build out that resource plan. I might want to add a couple of more resources up here. I could just say add a booking and bring someone else onto the proposed team that I'm trying to build out. And have that complete participation in resource planning across the portfolio, because you can see there's an over allocation here because there's other projects, they might be being managed with other tools, Project Pro, Azure DevOps, Jira, whatever the case may be. We're all participating in providing resourcing in this same manner so that we have a complete picture of it. Likewise, I might want to track a budget. This is that number that's being split across those key results. And it's a combination of resourcing. So I've pulled in, I've imported from here the costs of my resources that were in that resource pool, and then I could track other costs as they are incurred. So I have that ability to participate in budget planning and budget tracking, regardless of which tool I'm going to use and how it itself would manage that. I'm abstracted from that and I'm able to do it here. And then lastly, I'll just do it quickly, I had this on the screen a second ago, this is the actual schedule coming out of Microsoft Project for the Web. And so I could come in here and I could open Project for the Web if I wanted to and bring that up and do the execution of assigning these resources and tasks to it. and then pull that data back here so that I can see it, so that I understand where the assignments are at the task level that may feed the time sheeting that I need to do down the road and so forth. So regardless of the tool I'm using, I'm able to participate in the portfolio and in the overall management of the portfolio itself, the resourcing, the budgets, the status reporting, and so forth. So a couple points to close on. Let me just switch over here to a different view. I'm going to go to my prioritization exercise. So I want to look at my portfolio and understand which projects, if I just pull this out, are tied to which key results. And if I come in here and say, I want to maybe filter on a key result, and I'm going to go and grab this one, and say that's our most important key result. We've got to get that done. We've got to accomplish that. Well, here's what I know right away. 2 of the projects are on hold and 2 are in proposed status. We're unlikely to succeed in accomplishing this particular key result when 4 of the 6 projects are currently not ongoing. They're not active. So as we make our prioritization decisions, we're going to want to make sure those are not on hold anymore. And with that will come, well, what do we have to take off hold? Like, what would we have to do differently? So I could look at my whole portfolio again and start to work through that and say, well, those 2 have to be, on here, whoops, sorry. And so I want to look at this from a budget perspective and say, which projects am I going to do and which ones am I not going to do? How do I fit them into the budget if I'm going to take the ones that are on hold off hold? So right now in my model they're in. So I'm going to start to knock a couple others out to see how I'm going to get to that budget. I'm not going to work all the way through that. But my goal would be, we know what our key result is that we've got to accomplish. We know that some of the projects we need to do it aren't in play right now. How are we going to get them in and what's coming out? And it gives us that visibility. And so I want to end on a couple of different views. One, I'm going to go back to my portfolio summary just quickly here. Here we go. And I'm going to just do this. We've added some new views in here. So if I go in here to visualize this particular portfolio, and I want to look at runway, what I can see here, let me just shrink that a little bit so we can see it, is I have my portfolio. It has a couple of programs. There's one down there in the bottom. It has all those projects that were listed there. They're in the other view. But here they are. We can see very quickly how they link to our key results and objectives. So we have that linkage. This data came from Viva Goals. We may be managing it in Viva Goals. You can also see that there's some status data here that we're pulling in based on the color coding. And so we're able to feed that back to Viva Goals. But here, we can also understand which projects, which programs, and what portfolio are tied to and are contributing to completing and achieving those objectives. I'm going to turn that around a bit differently, just to end on here. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, let's look at this from the objective side, because maybe not everything's in one portfolio. Maybe I want to see it in the opposite way. 2 things I wanted to show. First, we have some dependencies. This is my objective that I'm looking at. This particular objective is a predecessor. We got to get that done to accomplish this, and this one's waiting effectively on both of them to get done. So we can understand that predecessor and successor scenario, whether it was on objectives or back in the portfolio, we could do the likewise. But where I wanted to kind of go to is here in the runway. So now I'm looking at this way. This is my objective. These are my key results. Again, this data here came from Viva Goals. This data is being managed in the portfolio part of our SPM solution. And this stuff over on the far right is the enterprise architecture. All 3 legs of the stool are here in this view and interrelated with each other. So we have a complete picture of where are we in accomplishing this particular objective. Well, these are the key results we need to get done. These are the projects we're investing in, and these are the products, applications, and so forth that will be contributed to or added to or introduced into the organization or enhanced in order to make this a reality. It's all here in one view, and we've managed to bring the power of Viva Goals in terms of articulating the OKR and the OKRs and the strategy of the organization, and then operationalize that here in a full SPM solution. And with that, Jim, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, well, thanks for that great overview. Let's take a moment now to summarize what we've heard so far and seen, and then talk about some potential next steps. So as we look at the topic that we had here today, strategic portfolio management is a critical success factor for today's digital business, not just according to us and by Microsoft, but the analysts like Gartner. And the introduction of Microsoft Viva Goals provides for strategic planning and execution on that Microsoft platform within that Microsoft Viva suite and that employee experience platform. Now, OKRs define what you want to do and measure if you are achieving them, but strategies that we define should be aligned throughout the organization to achieve desired outcomes. That includes even the portfolio of projects and initiatives that we have. OnePlan, we demonstrated, adds capabilities to this mix to provide a full SPM solution with all the other dimensions, including the enterprise and business architecture dimensions, to consider. And the combination of Microsoft Viva Goals with OnePlan provides the most complete set of SPM capabilities on the Microsoft platform today. And as we discussed and showed a little bit, OnePlan does integrate with other solutions and tools as needed so that you can leverage things that you already have in flight into this mix and bring it together into a holistic SPM solution. Now, OnePlan does this because our passion is really in project and portfolio management. We were again just recently awarded Partner of the Year globally in project and portfolio management by Microsoft, and we work very closely with them in this discipline. We've been recognized for this 4 years running in this discipline, and we have many Microsoft Gold certifications, but this is really our passion. And we're also recognized by the folks at Gartner and Infotech and other analysts, as well as standards bodies like Scaled Agile Inc. for the work that we're doing and the ways that we're working with organizations of all different types and different methodologies and frameworks. Now, we do webinars like this on a regular basis. We're working right now on what the next set of webinars would be, but you can actually go to oneplan.ai/webinars and you can see any live webinars that are upcoming you can register for, but we have a whole library of on-demand webinars that you can access. So feel free to explore that if you're interested in delving a little bit further there. Also, we support free trials. So if you want to go to AppSource on Microsoft's appsource.com and search on OnePlan, strategic portfolio management is one that would be the one that's more closely aligned with what we showed you there today. But we do have agile portfolio management, adaptive portfolio management, etc. But the idea here is we can chaperone you through that and help you get value out of a trial as you dig a little deeper. And if you want to explore Microsoft Viva Goals, you can try it now. But if you want some assistance on how the combination of Viva Goals and OnePlan can provide that full SPM solution that you're looking for, engage with us and let us help you get the most value out of that evaluation. Now, another special offer is we do offer free roadmap workshops. So if you're kind of curious and want to understand what it's going to take, we can help you review your current use of solutions and tools, assess what your current requirements are and desired future state that you have in mind, and then determine how would be best to implement or migrate into a new solution like this, and provide an implementation roadmap for the best adoption success. And the total cost of ownership might be less than you think because you may own a bunch of the components that are already needed. So next steps would be that chaperone free trial, a roadmap workshop, or if you're not that far along and you want to know more, engage with us and we'll schedule a personalized one-on-one demo and go deeper. We'll focus more on the requirements that you have uniquely for your organization. And you can reach out to us at contact@oneplan.ai to do that, or just research on your own at www.oneplan.ai if you're not at that state yet. Ultimately, our goal is to engage with you and to help you out. We are invested in success, and what that means is we're invested in our customer success. So reach out to either to the general line. You can reach out to Paul or I directly if you want to do that. You'll be getting a copy of these slides and a link to a recording of this presentation, generally within 24 hours of the webinar. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for taking some time out of your valuable days, and we hope to see you down the road. Have a great day.